Anderson is here. And Mrs. Anderson, we are going to have you do the two new and two re-elected board members individually so we can hear them clearly. So I am not sure. We haven't done this virtually before. Do we have them read off of the sheet, or do you read to them and they repeat?
She has sent me a text. I'm gonna check with her real quick here.
Okay. Oh, the craziness of the virtual world, you guys.
Okay. I got part of the Zoom, so we're on there. Now I'm trying to pick up the meeting on my phone. Think about it. Rick, once I went to the Baldwin website, do I go live feed or staff?
You're here. You're good.
Okay.
You're at the meeting, so you're good. The only thing I wanted you to be able to access was the board packet. It's 38 pages. But you're here with us. That's good. You've done that.
Okay, so hopefully we have this resolved. Now, Mrs. Anderson and I did go over this and tested it, but for some reason, she's not able to hear on her computer. So she can see everybody, but no audio is coming through to her. So she is going to try to connect via her phone and see if that helps. I mean, I suppose worst case scenario, we can have her speak and not hear. I'm not sure how that.
Yeah, this is the best example of wait time I've seen. So. Mr. Forrester, while we wait, the email that I forwarded to you, is that an additional amount of grant funding? Do you know?
I actually just walked in the door, like, just before I got on from the office. I got stuck there. So let me just take a look while we are here.
And
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what order this document is in that you sent me. It's not by LEA code.
I did a search for Baldwin. That's how I found it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look on my email. I was on my phone. I was looking at it through my phone, but I'll take a look at that.
Okay.
So we probably are ready. If Sherry can hear, then if you want to go ahead and maybe explain to her how we're going to do this. I've talked to her about it, but.
All right. So, Mrs. Anderson, we are going to have you individually do the oath of office for the two re-elected board members, Ms. Martin, and Mr. Carter, and the two new board members, Mr. Jones Salam and Mrs. Hill.
Okay. And where do we start?
Repeat after you.
Re-elected with Mr. Carter, so you can start there.
Okay. I'm just going to read, and then whoever turn it is, they can just repeat after me. I do solemnly swear to affirm
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state.
Speak up a little bit, Sherry.
Everybody should probably mute too.
And the Constitution of this state
And the Constitution of this state.
and that I will faithfully discharge
And I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
member of the Board of Education of Baldwin Community Schools
member of the Board of Education of Baldwin Community Schools
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay. Who's next?
That was Mr. Jones Salam. Ms. Martin, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do Ms. Martin next.
Okay. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Baldwin Community Schools.
Oh, really? That I
Okay. The duties of the office of
the duty, the office of
member of the Board of Education
member of the Board of Education
of Baldwin Community Schools
of Baldwin Community Schools,
according to the best of my ability.
so that according to the best of my ability.
Next,
Mrs. Hill, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Okay. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge.
the duties of the office of
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
the duties of the office of
The duties and the office of
member of the Board of Education
member of the Board of Education
of Baldwin Community Schools
of Baldwin Community Schools
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Anderson, I thought that I saw Mr. Carter here, but I must have dreamt that up. So it looks like that is the three people we will swear in tonight. So welcome aboard, everyone, and welcome aboard.
He just popped,
Just popped in?
he just popped in.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I just popped
Don't leave
in.
yet. Don't leave yet. Eric.
Okay, are you ready? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. I do solemnly swear or affirm
pardon me?
repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I'll do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the duty of the office I've been
member of the Board of Education
member of the Board of Education
of Baldwin Community Schools
of Baldwin Community Schools
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Welcome aboard, everybody. All right. Now I get to do a roll call of our members. So, Mr. Brooks.
I'm here.
Mr. Carter,
Here,
Mr. Jones Salam,
Present.
Mrs. Hill,
Present.
Miss Martin,
Here.
Mrs. Peasky,
Here.
Mrs. Washington.
Here.
All right. To try something different this month to make our Pledge of Allegiance look more organized, Mr. Brooks, would you mind leading us in the pledge, and everyone else just listen along?
I will do that.
Thank you.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we go to election of officers and the election of a temporary chairperson. Sometimes it's been the superintendent, but we did talk to Troon today, and they said it would be all right to use a current board member. So I think right now I'm running the meeting, so I might recommend that we elect the previous president to run the election of officers.
So was that a motion you made?
I guess so. I made the motion, so we need a second on that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, Mrs. Washington, handing it over to you.
Okay, so first item up is the election of the president. So we will open the floor for nominations. So if there are nominations, you can put those out there now for president.
I would like to nominate Mrs. Shawn Washington.
Are there any other nominations for the floor? I hear that there are none. I accept that nomination. All in favor of Shawn Washington being the board president for 2001 school year? Is there a motion?
In 2021.
Thank you.
2021, yeah. Yeah, I was
2020.
gonna hit 2012, 2001. Yeah, I second the motion.
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to the election of the vice president. So we'll open the floor for nominations for the vice president.
I would like to nominate Mrs. Mary Martin, Vice President.
There's one nomination on the floor. Is there any other nominations for the vice president position?
You stupid.
Is that for me, Mrs. Martin?
Oh. Sir, I'm sorry. People were busting out laughing over here. So yes, I would accept the nomination if you are ready to relinquish. By all means, we'll do that.
All right, so there are no other nominations for vice president. It sounds like Miss Martin has accepted the position, the nomination of vice president. So is there a motion to nominate Miss Mary Martin to serve as the vice president?
I make that motion.
Okay.
I make that motion. Oh, you made the motion?
Yeah, we'll have Mr. Carter to second it.
Okay.
All
I'm
in
so
favor?
glad you all love me. All these nominations, I love you guys. Seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Heck yeah.
Aye.
Those opposed? Actually, we should have been, well, we'll do that in a minute. Okay. Is there any, so number 4, moving to the election of the secretary. Are there any nominations for the position of secretary? Well, I'll nominate Mrs. Mary Ann Peasky for secretary. Are there any other nominations for secretary? I hear none. Ms. Mary Ann Peasky, you accept the
I'll accept
nomination?
I'll accept the nomination.
All right, it's been accepted by Mary Peasky. Is there a motion?
I motion.
I make a motion.
All right, looked like that was Mr. Jones Salam, and that's going to be seconded by Mr. Carter. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carried.
I do get help.
Last
I
but
do get
not
help from
least,
the person, right?
huh?
I do get help from Miss Mary first, right?
Yeah, you'll have support.
All right.
So last but not least, the position of treasurer. Is there a nomination for the position of treasurer?
I would like to nominate Mr. Marion Carter
I'll
as
second that.
treasurer.
Any other nominations? Hearing none. Mr. Carter, do you accept the nomination for treasurer?
Yes, I accept the nomination for treasurer, and I thank you.
You're welcome. So who is going to make that motion?
I make the
I motion that we elect Mr. Carter.
All right, we'll call that Mr. Brooks, and sound like that was seconded by Mr. Salam. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carried. So the officers as it stands for the 2021 school year, President, Mrs. Sean Washington, Vice President, Ms. Mary Martin, Secretary, Mrs. Mary Ann Peasky, and Treasurer, Mr. Marion Carter. Thank you all. And that will adjourn our organizational meeting at 6:21 p.m. Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we adjourn at 6:21.
All right, Mr. Carter, is there support?
I support that motion.
Right, Mr. Brooks, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so Mrs. Peasky, you can pull out your pen and piece of paper and we'll be ready to rock and roll. So we'll call the meeting back to order at 6:22 p.m. We will not do the Pledge of Allegiance again since we just did that a few minutes ago at the beginning of the organizational meeting. And so can we won't do that or recite the mission because that's on there twice. So if we can do, we'll do roll call again for the sake of roll call. So just Ms. Peasky, would you like to call the roll, ma'am?
I'm going to give it my best shot. Ms. Sean Washington,
Here.
Mr. Joe Brooks,
I'm here.
Mr. Marion Carter,
Here.
Ms. Mary Martin,
Here.
Mr. Paul Jones Salam,
Here.
and Ms. Hill,
Present.
and Ms. Mary Ann Peasky here. How'd I do?
Great job. Thank
Real
you.
good.
Great job. All right, so the purpose of the open board meeting says this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It's not to be considered a public community meeting, and there is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. And we do have 2 communication items tonight. So we'll go right into the consent agenda items. Approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 15th, 2020, approval of the bills to be paid, starting with the general fund account 74478 to 74565, food service account 5042 to 5046, Baldwin Promise Authority checks starting at 1321 to 1325. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So
I
move.
make a motion. So move.
So it's on Mr. Brooks, and then we will give that to Mr. Jones Salam. What we're gonna do tonight is gonna be kind of hectic, but in order to make sure we record everyone's vote, Madam Secretary, we'll do a roll call. So after every motion, I'll just have you to call the roll again and people will say aye. So we'll make sure that we're getting it. Okay, so it's been motioned by Mr. Brooks and second by Mr. Jones Salam. So we'll need a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Joe Brooks,
Aye.
Mr. Marion Carter,
Aye.
Ms. Mary Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Jones Salam,
Aye.
Ms. LaToya Hill,
Aye.
and Ms. Sean Washington,
Aye.
Ms. Mary Ann Peasky, aye.
All right, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, presentations. Looks like Mr. Cornwell and Mr. Is it Alphonse or Alfonso?
Mr. Alonso.
Alonzo.
Yep.
Alonzo.
So I'm going to just introduce Mr. Alonso here briefly and let him talk to you about this purchase for the band program. The idea behind this purchase came up in some conversations we had about our students in this COVID area and making music. And I don't know if you've seen Mr. Alonso in action online, but his music class is awesome. He does amazing things online. I've visited like 3 times and I get special sound effects every time I join the class. I love it. But one of the concerns we had about bringing students back at some point and using brass and woodwind instruments is we're blowing air through stuff all around the room and at the director. So I just want to invite Mr. Alonso to talk to you for just a minute about this proposal we put together. It's a chance for our students to learn some string instruments and make some music. So Mr. Alonso, I'll let you talk for a minute.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to talk a little bit about our decision. Mr. Cornwell pointed out a lot of the points that we're going for. First is making music for the students, or having the students make music, not only by themselves, but potentially with their family and the community, as the guitar is a very community-centered instrument. While also staying in the guidelines, as now with COVID, not blowing air on each other and still being able to maintain distance from each other to play the instruments, both remotely and once we do come back in the classroom. The cost of guitar, they're much cheaper to maintain than the instruments. So if an instrument does get damaged at the homes, they'll have to send it in, and then we'll have to send it out again to make repairs. Whereas with guitars, it's much easier to fix, as most likely it's going to be a string breaking or a loosening of the peg, which what the students will also be learning, how to take care and maintain an instrument of their own. These instruments will be able to be switched between junior high and high school depending on the semesters. So it'll be a really good universal instrument for junior high all the way up to senior year if the students choose to stay with this instrument. And with that, if you would like to know any specifics, I'm open to any questions that you might have.
How many are we looking to purchase? How many do we need?
We cut down, we were first going pretty ambitious to have guitars for all the music students. And we did go back down from there. So we're looking for 40 guitars. This will accommodate one entire high school class, two high school classes, or if we decided a high school class and a middle school class as well.
This purchase also includes guitars, the music books, some extra strings, and hard cases to protect them in storage.
Now, when you talk about, I'm sorry, when you talk about string instruments, the guitar will help in learning music. And I was thinking when you said string instruments of violins, cello, stuff like that, which probably is more expensive. Is that correct?
Yes, that is accurate.
But the guitar will at least allow them to learn the basics of music application and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it'll give them more of a hands-on experience, not only of playing music that they see, but also in writing music of their own.
Okay. Do we have violins or anything like that currently?
No, we don't know.
Okay.
I really love this idea because I know in the elementary, Mrs. Sherlock has guitars. And so where we always lose kids sometimes when they're able to get grants over there to do those things, kids will learn how to play guitar or an instrument in elementary and then come over to the secondary building, and then we don't have that available. So this is just, to me, this is just kind of alignment, just like we would do our curriculum with our with music. So I really like this idea. Whoever thought about that, kudos. I like it.
That's all, Mr. Alonso. I'll give him all the credit on this one.
Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso.
So I take it you have students. So I take it you do have students that are interested though.
Oh,
Middle
yeah.
school and high school students.
Yeah, students are really craving to get back into instrumentation.
Are these new guitars or secondhand or refurbished?
These will be new guitars from Marshall Music.
Okay. Are there any existing or refurbished, that are well enough to be used in this project?
Not that I would recommend. Marshall gives us a warranty to come with it, and also they're pretty trustworthy partner that we've had so far.
Okay. And what would be the price of a single unit?
For a single unit, a guitar,
Well, you're asking for 40, so what would be the unit?
the single price is $221.
That would be times 40.
Correct.
I think we already have not to exceed 71. So is that still the case?
Yep, that's still the current quote.
Okay, all right. So maybe, okay, all right. Let's just inform Mr. Jones. Now, will these guitars be staying on campus? Or will the students be allowed to take them home to practice?
Intention is we got good, sturdy, hard case guitars for the students to take home and practice.
Okay.
Are they insured in any way?
We do have Yamaha's manufacturer warranty.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Awesome. Well, thank you for that presentation and letting us know. And I'm glad to hear that students are excited about an opportunity to learn how to play guitar. I know one of your students personally, and so she's pretty stoked about the opportunity. So
fantastic. Well, thank you all for having me.
Yep. Good night. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Washington? Hello?
Yes.
I had a
Yes,
question,
Mr.
but I was
Carter?
muted. I forgot I was muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
What-
go ahead, Mr. Carter.
Do they have a planned date for purchasing these guitars yet?
We're waiting for
Repeat
board
the question.
approval. It's part
Okay.
of this evening's board packet.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cornwell, did you have anything else? Oh, you'll probably do that in principal reports. Never mind.
Yep, I'll be back later.
Okay. All right, Mr. Heitmeyer, you got a presentation for us?
I do. Now I don't see anybody anymore, so hopefully you can still hear me. So this is reconfirmation hearing number 4 for January of 2021. The reason we have to do this each month throughout this year, we have to reconfirm how instruction is going to be delivered during the 2020-2021 school year. We have to include public comments from parents and or guardians on our extended learning plan, and we need to review the weekly two-way interaction rates. So nothing has changed since last month on this page. This discusses how we have delivered instruction, and for the most part, we have delivered instruction remotely. There have been some in-person instruction for special education students, but for most students, it has been remote. December, we are always a month behind on these. December, we had only 3 weeks of school. We did have the holiday break at the end of the month. As you can see, the rates are similar to what we have had so far. A little bit lower at the elementary, a little bit in the middle, at the middle, and a little bit higher at the high school level. This is last month's document that I just wanted to share again to show you where we were a month ago, where we were in Lake County a month ago. And then this is exactly a month later. And basically, there's about 94,000 more cases in Michigan, about 2,800 more deaths, and in Lake County, 58 additional cases and 3 additional deaths. So how do we put this together? We gather data and information, feedback to drive our decision-making process. Governor Whitmer recently recommended that schools offer some sort of face-to-face option by March 1st. We currently hear daily about schools that have to quarantine students and staff. We believe that we really should follow closely the expectations of wearing masks, of being 6 feet apart, and regular cleaning of high traffic areas. Vaccines should be available soon. I was able just before the meeting started to fill out a document for the health department. I've reached out to family health care. So we're trying hard to, as soon as possible, get everyone who wants to be vaccinated. The rollout has been slow. There have been shortages of the vaccine, but we are hoping that soon we can start this process. And we believe that if everyone who wants a vaccine can get it, then we believe that a March 1 return to face-to-face instruction would make sense for Baldwin. So for this month, our recommendation, we met with the district network team last week, and we discussed the governor's expectation. We currently are having in-person cohorted NWEA assessments. That's this week. Our next board meeting will be Tuesday, February 16th. The rollout of the vaccines, as I said, has been frustrating for everyone, but we believe we're getting closer. And our recommendation is to continue with remote instruction through February 26th, and hopefully be able to begin cohorted in-person instruction on March 1st. And we can determine our next course of action at the February 16th board meeting. So that's a lot of information to share. You know, as we've been discussing since this started, and all the work that we've done with the DNT and the extended DNT during the summer, working with you guys, working with the administrative team, you know, it's not an easy decision at any time. And you know, we really had a good discussion last Thursday about this, and we feel that we've been so cautious so far. We've had consistent education throughout the year. We've watched a lot of other schools have to have interruptions to instruction. You know, we know that, you know, I think I say this every month, we know that the remote system is not perfect, but what we've discovered through the remote process is that probably face-to-face isn't perfect either. So we know that we're getting close to being able to come back, but we've been so cautious that with the vaccine right on our doorstep now, to rush everybody back before having that opportunity, we think would not be the wisest thing to do. So we believe that if it's as close as it sounds like it is, and we can get a clinic and get people vaccinated, then by March 1st, everybody who wants it should be able to have been able to get it. And, you know, everybody would have a little more peace of mind coming back. We are working on what some scenarios would look like. What is face-to-face going to look like? It'll probably be a hybrid model, but we've got to work through that process right now. We also, several months ago, we started the process of determining some technology that we could have in all of our classrooms, K-12. That's ordered and able to begin being put in if we wait until the March 1st deadline. If we decide to do face-to-face before that, we probably would need to wait until the summer to begin the installation of the different technology. But we just see this as a key component to going back to face-to-face, because with the skills that our teachers have learned, and the cool thing is you hear other people talking about the thoughts that we've put into this, and so as we get ready, we hear that kids are excited about some of the different things they've learned with technology and how they can apply it when they get back to school. So if we can have the whole package come together for when everybody comes back, we just think that would be an incredible opportunity for our kids and for our staff and overall for the community. We're still working on the big idea of internet for everybody. So, there's going to be a cool combination of the technology and the face-to-face, and we're gonna be able to move forward pretty cool. So that's a lot in a short amount of time, but our recommendation is that we plan to come back. Hopefully we can come back March 1st. It's 6 weeks out, and as you guys know, we discuss every month, we're living in these 3-week cycles. So, we're hopeful that in 6 weeks we would be able to come back and get people back into the building. So that's my thought there. We can try to answer questions now, or whatever might be on your mind. But
Okay. My first question is that tested.
Have they been tested for COVID?
Yes.
Only the staff who either had symptoms or had an exposure.
Okay, so as you approach this March deadline, do we think that everybody should be tested as we approach this to make sure we don't have any symptoms or walking symptoms, so we can kind of start with a kind of a clean bill of health in the sense that all staff has been at least tested? One of the things that this virus brings about is the fact sometimes you don't know if you have it or not. And I think before we bring children back on campus, as well as staff back on campus, they should have at least one test, at least, prior to us coming on, as to whether or not they have the virus or not, or had the virus. One of the things I'm concerned about is when you talk about the technology advantage that we have, is Baldwin Community Schools is one of the major employers of this area. And by us not functioning every day, we're losing in certain aspects as far as some of our economy is concerned, as what we stimulate in our school district and throughout the county and throughout the area. But I think because our staff, if I remember correctly, is a traversing staff. They don't all live in Lake County. They come from various parts of, Western Michigan, that we should probably have something on file saying they at least had one test during this time. And then the next thing is, how do we approach them in being secure and taking the vaccine? And I know that's an issue because some people want to take it and some people don't. They have their concerns. But once again, there's that liability that we shoulder by not being prepared in the event that somebody questions the board or you as to how many teachers or has your staff been tested, number one, and how many teachers or is your staff as a group been vaccinated. If I remember correctly, as a teacher, I think every 10 years I had to have a TB test. And that was required for us to have that TB test. Am I correct? Am I correct on that, Rick?
I don't think so. But
No, I mean, I've had to do that in conjunction and working with children. We had to go to the health department or family health care and get that prick in our arm. And then they had to read it. We had to go back and read if we had tuberculosis. That was a requirement in order to be around children. And I had to do it several years in my 20 plus years of service, either community education or K-12. We had to do a TB test. They would send us a card down. The other thing is, because we have privatized our food service and our maintenance department, our housekeeping department, what are their policies on their people being tested? Because they also will come in contact with our students. And then, I mean, it's just something to think about. Just something to think about. I mean, some of these economies, some of these states are opening up and they're just taking the risk that everybody's okay until someone gets sick. And I think it would be prudent on our part if we can be able to say that our staff has been tested. Either 75% of the staff or 100% of the at least had a COVID test in this. It would probably be a year come March, right? This virus came on us last year sometime. So in at least the last year of time, somebody's had a test. Personally, if I had two tests since this thing started, because of hospital appointments and checking to make sure. I even took one down at the school that the, I guess, health department and the National Guard set up. There was a free COVID test, just to be on the safe side. So just something to think about. I'll throw it out to the rest of the board members. But if we're looking at trying to get back into face-to-face, I think we should have something on file to cover our liability that at least we can show that our staff has at the very least been tested, and who has had it, who has not had it, who does not have it. Now, the vaccine is another issue, but it may be something to think about if you're working with children. And you may want to check into that, I think it's the tetanus shot that is required by the state, or the tetanus reading. I think it was even not tetanus, but tuberculosis. I don't know if anybody else had that test, where they prick you, they stick something in your arm with the prong, the 3 prongs. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
they do it different now. Now it's just like a little needle under your first layer of your skin.
But they still require it, right?
I don't recall like ever needing to do that. And I've worked in the after school program.
In my time of service there as a teacher, I think I had at least 2, maybe 3, because I think it was like a 10-year test that had to be taken every 10 years if we worked on staff. So I'm just throwing that out there in the event that we're looking at March 1st.
Mr. Heitmeyer?
Yes.
What do we have in place, like for the parents who may not send their kids back when we do go back into person to person? Do we have anything in plan for those? Because like I know for sure my daughter would probably not be able to come in right away. Do we have anything in place for the students who will not be able to come to person?
We don't have it 100% finalized, but yes, we will have some type of option for all students, for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Did that conclude your presentation, Mr. Heitmeyer, or did you have more?
That concludes my presentation.
Okay, then we'll move on to principal reports. Mr. Mangum? You're available, sir?
I am here. I just, I've been having some internet issues today, so I flipped off my camera.
Okay.
So how's everyone doing this evening?
Doing well, doing well. Glad you're able to be here.
Good. I'm just going to kind of go through some things that have been happening since December. Right now, kind of in student news, you can see that we are in the middle of testing. So we've been bringing in small cohorts of students in. We had two groups in today, about a quarter of our students here in the elementary school, to take our second round of NWEA testing. So this would be our mid-year benchmark. And this is important for us because it allows us to look at, kind of gauge how do we do for the first part of the year, right? So we'll be able to take this along with the assessment that they took previously in October and see if we've had student growth. And so between now and this week, Friday, we'll be bringing in, as I mentioned, small cohorts of students, small groups at each grade level. We'll be doing the ELA or reading NWEA as well as the mathematics NWEA. And then next week, we may have a day of makeups for those students that couldn't quite make it in. But then after that, we will pull that data down and do some data analysis, both in the building and then have some data to share with you next month in February to kind of look at, how did we do? Did we see growth from students? How did the online work for our kids? The other thing that we are offering for some parents who had concerns with having their students come in is that we did offer an assessment via distance. And so that's something that we were able to do both in the fall as well as, again, in winter. And we do have a number of students that have taken us up on that. From a building news perspective, in December and January, teachers continue to work on their implementation of their EL education curriculum, which is our new ELA curriculum. We conducted classroom walkthroughs, and we completed our first round of data collection around what we were looking at. This particular curriculum really puts an emphasis on articulating learning targets and then also having students unpack those targets. And also to go along with that, we also have success criteria. So that allows students to be able to kind of gauge for themselves and the teacher to put some pieces into place to see how well did we meet that criteria, right? How well did we understand that learning target? And in that first round, we found that we were doing really, really well in articulating the learning targets, and we were unpacking the learning targets for the students, but not necessarily having the students unpack them. And so we went back in our PD time during BCS, which is that morning time that we have, and did some more learning around what does that look like? What might it look like for students to unpack those learning targets and put it into their own language and really have a deep understanding of what it is that they're learning on that particular day. The other piece is we started developing success criteria. And so we did some training around that. And so we are in the middle right now of doing our second round of data collection to see, how that round of training in December impacted what we're doing in January. So again, we're talking about that iterative nature, that cyclical nature, right? We're gonna do some learning together. We're going to then implement that in the classroom. We're going to measure that, and then we're going to come back and talk to that and tweak and make adjustments. So again, it's that iterative nature, continuous improvement, and we'll continue to do so as we work through this implementation throughout the rest of the school year. On the community front, got some pretty exciting news. The Meyer Corporation made a generous donation. They were working with our physical education teacher at the elementary school, Mr. Mark Cook, and they donated $1,500 in school supplies. Those school supplies are actually in the building right now. Mr. Cook and Mrs. Drilling have inventoried those, and we have that in the building. And in addition to that, they donated $2,000 in gift certificates to be utilized towards the purchase of new athletic footwear for our students for phys ed purposes. And so Mr. Cook is kind of right now he's going through what he has on site and seeing what sizes we may need and what additional footwear we're going to need for kids to participate in gym when they return. So very exciting stuff.
Good news.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So quick question. So the data that you will present in February is going to be about the learning targets and the success criteria, because I really like the fact that you're looking at, okay, the teachers had to go and do the professional development to make the changes and then go back and to see what that difference was.
Yeah. So have two rounds. We'll have 2 rounds of data at that point, and we'll be able to kind of look at where we had growth and where we need to continue to grow. And again, this is a growth-based model, so we know that we're not where we need to be, but we continue to move forward in this implementation. This is, and I think the neat thing that we're finding about this is when it comes to this idea of the learning targets and unpacking the targets and really giving students a success criteria, what it is, does it look like to be successful? That's not just for ELA, that's for math, that's for phys ed, that's for music, that's for any content area. And so we're really kind of looking at this as how we go about doing business as an elementary. And I know that they're doing similar work at the secondary building as well.
Awesome. That's good news. And how is your staff doing?
Good. They are stressed. I mean, this is a lot of work. This is a lot to take on. This is a new curriculum in the middle of a pandemic, while I'm also learning to teach online. And so they are a fantastic staff. They continue to impress me every day. Hard workers, just devoted to the district. But we're asking a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, you tell them that the Board of Education said thank you, and keep doing the work that they're doing. We appreciate it. Was there any other questions for Mr. Mangum on the?
Yes, I had a question, Mr. Mangum. When
Yes,
you
sir.
said you were doing the testing and you were bringing them in, so they were coming on the campus in small groups?
Yes, small groups.
Okay. And the number of people you were bringing on?
About a quarter of our students in each cohort, and that's being broken up by the classrooms.
Okay, so approximately how many in each testing cohort?
I would say that we probably have no more than 70 kids in the building at a time, spread out all the classrooms.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Mangum? Thank you for your report tonight. Okay, Mr. Cornwell, you are up, sir.
Well, thank you, ma'am. My report is also very similar to what Mr. Mangum mentioned. We have a lot of the same stuff going on. We're also NWEA testing right now for our 6th through 8th grade students. In the fall, when we did the benchmark, initial benchmark, the high school students took the SAT, PSAT at that time. So we're not going to give them the mid-year NWEA without an initial baseline piece of data. It just doesn't make sense data-wise to measure them mid-year to compare it to nothing. At the middle school, though, this week, while students come in, we're actually exchanging with them the Chromebook we've issued for a brand new Chromebook. We had about 30 students in today. The morning and afternoon sessions might have been closer to 35. And Mr. Filter actually just sent me a text and said that we had 20 that went home that we were able to exchange. The ones who we didn't exchange, they didn't bring back power cords. So despite our multiple efforts and attempts to send that message, a Chromebook and a power cord, they brought one or the other, but not both. So those couple kids, when they come back later in the week, I am sure they'll bring both things and be able to exchange for the new device. Testing went very well today in those small cohorts. I think our biggest classroom had 9 students in it. Most were 6 or 7. We've actually got a spillover room that we're able to use if we get over 10. So we can move some kids around to those smaller groups. Mr. Mangum talked about the unpacking of learning targets a little bit, about some of the work his staff has done. And the secondary staff is just starting to hit that right now. And the way I described it to a few of them when we talked was, we decided what our essential standards were, what were the things we really wanted to teach, and unpacked those as teachers into kid-friendly language. The next step is getting the kids to unpack them a step further so they know what's going on. So for instance, I taught middle school science, and I would have a standard such as, I can identify the parts of a plant cell, or I can describe the parts of an animal cell. Well, the unpacking comes in with what's the difference between identify and describe? Because a lot of students will see describe and they just list what they are. But that's not describing it. That's identifying it. So that's the next step in the process. It's a little bit of a challenge because I think some of those kid-friendly terms we kind of take for granted as adults. When we see identify, we get it. Kids not so much. At the secondary level, our EWIMS training is going well. The building network team is almost complete with their EWIMS training. That's the early warning management and intervention system. Lisa Francisco, our partnership liaison with MDE, has been working with the building network team 2 or 3 mornings a week during BCS to train that small group in depth. And then our PD on the 29th, that group will bring their learning to the whole staff that afternoon. And our intention is to focus initially on our attendance data, just to get into the swing of things. And then EWIMS has a portion for behavior and course completion. But we wanted to start with attendance, thinking that would probably be 1, the most pressing, and 2, kind of the easiest to attack with interventions for us to really get some footing in this process. So far, the BNT really seems to be enjoying that process. The second semester started out really well. I was in all of the classrooms twice in December. I've been in 13 already this week to observe, students and teachers in action. There's a lot of really good stuff going on in virtual learning. It is not perfect. I would say our face-to-face is not perfect either. But every time I've been in the classroom, I've seen stuff that just amazes me. We talk about student conversation, and most of the classrooms it's a kind of a blank screen. Cameras are off, mics are muted, but the chat box is just rolling with comments and questions. At the bottom of your screen, you have the little raise hand feature. Teachers are using that to get across to kids. They're using a couple different websites, Formative, Kahoot, where their students are able to kind of compete with one another to respond to questions and to break down some of those initial standards and learning targets to start the lesson. There really is some good stuff happening in our remote learning. And then finally, I'll echo what Mr. Heitmeyer mentioned earlier about one of the things we really hoped for in our COVID planning was to have consistent educational experience for our students. We've done better at that than anyone in the state. And that's kudos to you as a board, to our teaching staff. Whether I am in regional principals meetings or statewide principals meetings, probably the biggest complaint outside of contact tracing that principals make is, we just get going and I've got, my freshman class or half of my freshman class is quarantined for 10 days, or the state shut us down for 2 weeks. We had a neighbor in the region who, he complained, recently about how that 2-week shutdown at the state level in December just turned into a 4-week holiday break for many of their students. We've really had a great level of consistency in our education for all of our students without the startups and shutdowns. So that's kudos to you. And if you have any questions about the secondary, I'd be happy to take a few from you right now.
Any questions for Mr. Cornwell's report, information he provided? Well, thanks, Mr. Cornwell, for really, when you started unpacking the learning targets, when you're talking about identifying, describing, when you said that, it kind of clicked, and I could really see the difference in that. So I really like that you brought that out. And
it took a lot for me to understand what that really meant for myself. So I'm glad you were able to catch on, because it took me a bit too.
To think about that, but I can see for adolescents how they're like, well, I listed it, and it's not the same thing.
Yep.
So, and then again, thanks for just kind of reminding us again that consistency really is the key. And once again, nothing is perfect, but I just really believe being consistent, we have done something, and we've done that well. So it's a team effort. So you thank us, but we really thank you. And I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Mr. Mangum. How is your staff doing?
I think they're doing about as well as Mr. Mangum's elementary staff. It is a stressful time. I don't know about them individually. I know for me, the 2 weeks for the holidays was the most relaxed I've been in months. I know that I was able to step away, and I think they were able to step away. Teaching remotely is a challenge. Whether you're a first-year teacher or a 25th-year teacher, it's a challenge. We talked though before the break about just think about how much we've learned as teachers in this, not just about technology, because their technology skills have gone through the roof. They've done amazing things, but just about teaching and learning, as a classroom teacher, things that they never had to think about before. But they are stressed. They're concerned about the same things everybody's concerned about. They're, about staying healthy and doing right by our students. They miss the kids, but they're also, I think they're pretty apprehensive about coming back with students, especially before there's a chance to have at least a round of vaccinations. I think though that they're really doing a phenomenal job with the situation that they're in. So kudos to them, absolutely.
Well, once again, let them know that we said thank you and we appreciate all the work that they have been doing.
I surely will.
Are there any other comments or questions for both principals before we move on to communication items? Trent, are there any communication items out there? Oh, there was one. I think there was a parent who mentioned that kids would need to be back in the class, from Melissa Harrington. Thank you. And there are no other comments. Okay. Melissa, if you're able to hang around to the end of the meeting, hang around. Okay, Mr. Heitmeyer, we've got discussion items.
All right. So we have 4 consent agenda items.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Look like comment. Oh, I can't get it back. I'm sorry.
It says, Mr. Scott Pedigo, please consider extending the remote learning to allow staff the opportunity to get the vaccine.
Okay. And that is some conversation that you presented earlier about staff wanting to get vaccinated. Thank you, Mr. Pedigo. Okay, Mr. Hartman.
All right, so we have 4 consent agenda items. Consider hiring a part-time paraprofessional. We had 2 positions posted, and Mr. Reese Drilling applied for one of them and has gone through the interview process, and we are happy to recommend him tonight. He is currently a student at the University of Michigan, and he is now at this point considering possibly going into teaching, and he is remote right now, so this gives him a great opportunity to find out if education is something he really wants to pursue. And as a Baldwin graduate, that's pretty exciting. Consider hiring an elementary boys basketball coach. Mr. Kallistis Azuku, a former pro player, is interested in doing that. Happy to make that recommendation. Consider hiring a varsity boys bowling coach. Mr. Dwayne Roberts has helped out with bowling for the last few years, and we are happy to recommend that. Right now, we don't know where our I guess I don't know what to call a home alley. Our home alley, we don't know what it'll be.
Home lane.
Home lanes. We don't know when the Baldwin is going to open up. Consider hiring a varsity baseball coach. We are recommending Mr. Aaron Richard for that position. Those are consent agenda. And the other item we have this evening is to consider the purchase of guitars in an amount not to exceed $7,134. And I'm going to go back to that just to follow up. That also includes a classical hard tension silver-plated ball, 40 of those, 40 Planet Wave click-on tuners, 40 cases, and 40 copies of essential elements for the guitar. So the cost of the guitars themselves is about $4,200. So there's about $3,000 in additional materials that go with that. And that is in your packet as well. So that is my part of discussion, everybody.
Awesome. Which building for the part-time paraprofessional?
That is the elementary building.
Okay.
I believe that we are focusing that position on third grade right now. Is that correct, Mr. Mangum?
That is correct.
Okay. And usually for that elementary boys, that usually brings out a lot of numbers. So I don't know if that's just going to be like a one person or a two person or a one person with a volunteer or not. But those elementary boys usually have large numbers over the years. I don't know what it looks like, what it'll look like now, but usually that's pretty big.
Yeah, we don't know the numbers on that yet. That had been posted for a while, hadn't had any applications.
Okay.
So as Callistus started, we sat down and I said, "Hey, I got a great opportunity for you." So we'll at least get started with him doing that.
Okay.
We'll see the number of guys that come out. Right now, we're getting started with girls middle school as well, and girls varsity. We may not end up having varsity girls basketball. Our numbers are really low there. So we have a lot of guys out for JV and varsity, but we know that there may be some eligibility problems there. But the state, the MHSAA, has waived the semester eligibility, similar to what they did in the fall. So at least the student athletes could get started. Hopefully, with being able to participate, they would get motivated about the grades as well. So we're hopeful to have two teams at the for the boys. And talked to Coach Bergman today about the girls, and I said, well, see what we can do. Because we made some great progress last year, and I know we were really looking forward to this year. So be more to come on that for you guys by the end of the week.
Okay. And then what about, I see we have boys varsity baseball on here, but when will we post or seek out for girls softball coach?
Abby Engelhart is planning to return as the softball coach.
Awesome. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Any other questions for Mr. Heitmeyer under discussion items for discussion?
Yeah, I had a question concerning the basketball, the varsity and JV schedule. Are they scheduling games, or are they playing games during this period of time, or are they going to modify the schedule?
Yes, no, yes, no. We just had a meeting today. We will work tomorrow on a revision, probably revision number 4 of those schedules. I've been able to line up a couple of non-conference games as well, but it's I'll be honest with you, it's a nightmare right now. We're hoping we can find the officials and everything. It's crazy right now. We believe we'll be able to start with competition on February 4th, but we don't know that for sure. It keeps getting pushed back. As far as the bowling alley, I think the feeling there is they can't reopen if it's just the lanes open, if they can't do food and stuff. So, that's why we might not have a home lanes at this point. We'll see what happens on February 1st. I know that both principals kind of alluded to it, but we just have so many conversations about COVID and contact tracing and stuff. We just can't wait till we can get back to talking about real things in education. So thanks for the question. It's complicated, to say the least.
Any other comments under discussion?
So if they do decide to start in February, does that move the playoffs? Normally February was a time for basketball playoffs. Are they talking about moving that back into April?
Right now, the
Or
state,
are they just going to have 1 month of basketball and then go into the playoffs?
right now, the state finals are scheduled for April 9th and April 10th. So they have pushed it back.
Okay.
That's why we pushed back our league schedule. And we're going to have to try to pick up some more non-league games. So we had a nice schedule of 20 games for both teams, but it's a little confusing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else under discussion items? Okay, this will be our last communication item for the evening. So I have to remember people have to type, so I'm gonna have a little longer pause this time. Dwayne Roberts, we're looking to use another bowling alley. Oh, let me see.
Yeah, right now we're trying to find another home alley right now.
Okay.
Why is that? Mr. Heitmeyer, did the one in bottom close?
Right now they're closed, and if it's not able to offer the food and beverage options, he doesn't feel that it's going to work to reopen. So he's got to wait for to be able to fully reopen. So that's why we're in that boat right now.
Thank you.
Any other comments for the community items? Okay, I'm gonna move on. Okay, I'm gonna move on to action items. So this is what's under the consent agenda items that you don't have an opportunity to have your agenda up. So the first one is a consideration, because we can take this as a whole slate. That's why it's kind of under a consent agenda item. So I'm going to let you know what's underneath there just in case you don't have your agenda. It's going to be the consideration for hiring Reese Drilling as a part-time paraprofessional. It's going to be the consideration of hiring Calicis Izuku for the elementary boys basketball coach. It's going to be considering to hire Mr. Dwayne Roberts as the varsity boys bowling coach, and consideration to hire Mr. Aaron Richard as the varsity baseball coach. And then the consideration of purchasing guitars for remote and in-school instruction in the amount not to exceed $7,134. And then to accept the reconfirmation report and recommendations as presented with the COVID-19 as it relates to remote learning and the transition to school. Are there any questions before we move on? If not, then we will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda items. And then, Madam Secretary, we will do a roll call. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda items?
I move to accept the consent agenda. Sorry.
Been motioned by Mary Martin to accept and approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Carter.
Support.
Is there any questions or comments to the motion? If there are no questions or comments, then we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Miss Mary Martin,
Yes.
Miss Marion Peasky, yes. Mr. Marion Carter,
Aye.
Mr. Jones Solomon, Mr. Jones Solomon.
Salon.
I'm sorry.
My bad. I'm muted. Yes. And it's pronounced Salam.
Salon. Thank you. Ms.
You're welcome.
Latoya Hill,
Yes. And that's Latanya.
Latanya. Oh, look at me. I'm doing so well. Mr. Joe Brooks.
Yes.
Ms. Shawn Washington.
Yes.
That
That's everybody? Oh, okay. So no one opposed. So the motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent items.
We need to do items 2 and 3.
I put item 2 and 3 under the consent agenda items.
Okay.
I took that all in one swoop. I read all that. We just approved it.
All right. So I want to highlight the professional learning that we've been doing with Dr. Dominique Smith, and it's about equity and how equity can work well in schools. But I have to tell you, when we were working with him last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, we got on the topic of learning targets, and this is a topic that we do frequently discuss. And he talked about the success criteria, and so we kind of question him about that and what does that look like. So he shared a few examples, and he's going to share with us some more examples of that. But it's a struggle I've seen at different places where we believe that it's important to have those learning targets up, but it's hard to get everybody to get into that routine. So when he started talking about success criteria and how students will know if they've met that, that got us really excited and kind of changed the course of our conversation with him. So that's probably a piece that we're going to continue to work with him and ask him to incorporate when he works with the whole staff. But here we are working on equity and those kind of ideas, and we get into the whole discussion of curriculum and the importance of curriculum with equity. So it's going to be great as we continue to work with him and he continues to expand our minds and work on our mindsets. So we're very excited to continue moving forward with that. The other group I really want to talk about, I appreciate the work that everybody is doing. Mrs. Washington, you asked how the building staffs are working, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about the leadership team that I get to work with a little bit. And I know that they're stressed and they don't wear it on their sleeve all the time. But we do spend a lot of time talking about the need to not talk about COVID so much and not talk about contact tracing. So we try to keep the focus on where we're trying to go and what we're really trying to do. But I appreciate working with that crew so much and watching them grow as we learn new things about equity and we learn new things about technology and just the different areas that we've gone down. It's really been great, but that crew also works with the DNT, and that is such a key component to what we do, because years ago we talked about the whole idea of site-based leadership and hearing from everybody, and that group is just so well represented that we know as we discuss through topics and we talk about COVID and vaccines and coming back, that crew is just so integral in that whole conversation. And I appreciate how they challenge each other, how they challenge us. They raise great points every month. I really, and this is so true. I really believe that we were one of the schools who embraced the work that it took to put together a COVID plan, but we had all of that representation. You know, we had the DNT team and brought in our partners and made sure we had board member representation and stuff. And I'm just so proud to say that we really did embrace that work and, you know, get deep into it and put together what I think are some pretty good plans. So I'm proud of that. I want to echo the consistency. I think it has been huge. You know, just knowing where kids are going to learn every day is huge. And I know the stories that I've been told about the quarantines and the cancellations and stuff. And I'm just glad we haven't had to do that. So the consistency is important. I think I might have mentioned earlier, I did fill out the survey to work with the health department on getting the vaccine process going. I just got that email tonight, just before the meeting. Met with the CEO of Family Health last week and said, you know, if we can do this large scale at our school, we've got 2 gyms, you know, we are more than willing to make it happen. We want to give this opportunity. So I think with both of those entities coming together, I think it's going to be able to move now. During the meeting, did get an email from Dr. Jeffrey at the ESD. We are going to have a meeting tomorrow afternoon online where I think we're going to meet with somebody from the health department to get further information to see what things are looking like. So more to come on that, hopefully. RAG grant 2020-2021 is completed. 21H grant, we don't have the final answer yet, but we believe the retention stipend was approved for our staff, and we also believe that some professional development stipends were also approved. So when we get that final document from MDE, we'll let you know. Want to say Happy School Board Appreciation Month. Normally we're together and we have a little food and a little bit of fun. Hopefully you have some food and fun wherever you are tonight. But you know, I know your job is never easy, but I know in the last year it's probably been harder than ever. You're making some courageous, big decisions, and kudos to all of you for being willing to do that. Like I say, it's not been easy since early March when it all started to happen. So thank you for being courageous and supporting the community. It's very appreciated. And those of you who did the oath tonight, if you could come in tomorrow and sign that oath officially, we would appreciate that. So that's, I think that's everything that I had this evening.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, you make sure that you let your leadership team know that we do appreciate all the hard work that they also have been putting in for the last year during our time of separation. If there are any board member items at this time, can bring those out, or comments or anything?
I would like to welcome our 2 new board members to our board, and also our returning ones back.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. One question, Rick. Can I just come in and sign my paperwork next week?
We're going to make that possible, but I think we're going to see if we can do an electronic version as well. I'll get in touch with you tomorrow to confirm, but yeah, we'll make it work. Absolutely.
All right, then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Forrester, I'm not sure where you fall into, if you're part of the leadership team or not, but I don't want to exclude you because you do a lot of hard work behind that desk. And you keep a lot of things going, and I want to not overlook you and make sure that tonight I told you thank you as well for all the work you've been doing to really keep the school floating on that financial side with all these. I heard that RAG grant and that 2H and all that. I know that's you crunching those numbers and making that stuff work and ordering all of this COVID supply stuff. So So we appreciate you as well, sir.
Well, thank you. There are a lot of good people working around me. That's the secret.
Well, you thank them too. We want to thank Sherry for being here tonight. Make sure you thank Mr. Alphonse. I'm gonna not get it right again.
Monzo. Yep.
Bonzo, for showing up tonight, and thank you to both the building principals and our staff and families that were out there briefly today. And like I said, thank you and for the returning members for putting your hat back in there, and welcome to our 2 new ones for taking your oath tonight. And it is National School Board Appreciation Month, and people have no idea what we really do, but we know, and we do know that it is very challenging, and it is a thankless job. People are more angry with you than they do appreciate the work that you do, but I want to thank you all for being great teammates, and supporting the decisions that have been made that have not been easy by any means. But I appreciate you all, and that's all I have. Oh,
Madam President?
yes, sir.
Yes, I want to thank you, board members, for trusting me to be the treasurer of the board again. And I want to thank all the board members that did come back once again. And I want to thank our superintendent who's hanging in there during these bad times with us and doing all that he do. And I want to express my appreciation for our president of the board. She works so hard for the board and keeping everything in line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. What I wanted to mention too is hopefully Mr. Heitmeyer and I were talking about the possibility when we could get back together. We don't know if that's going to be next month or not, but we'll talk about those other committee assignments, because I want to be able to get the new board members kind of into a mentor role. So whatever position any of us take as a committee, I'm going to ask that make sure we assign our new board members to come with. So that we can start building that capacity within the board at the board level, because we all won't be here forever, and someone's got to be here. So we can talk about that committee stuff at the next meeting. So if there's nothing else and everybody's okay, I will entertain a motion to end the meeting at 7:33.
I make a move we adjourn at 7:23 or 33. I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Carter made a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Brooks said he'll give it a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Good night, everybody.
Have a great night, everybody.